In this screencast, I will explain about unit testing in our project. In Django, usually Django use a small extension of the base unit tests from the Python. And if we look at some test case, it's usually extended from the test case that is direct extension of the Python test case with just a few addition related to the database and object relational model of the Django. So at first I will explain some simple unit tests, and then I will go to more complex. In our project we have a lot of dictionaries like cabin category, cabin class, cabin type, port, etc. And for this kind of data models I created a special test case that unify the way of testing them. So what we need to test for the data models in general. At first we can check what I usually check. I usually check something that is not covered by some code wrote by me. For example, unique together fields. This is a fields that should be unique over the table for this data model, and Django apply this restriction through the database unique index. But I want to be sure that this unique together functionality will not be broken, because it is related to some objects retrieving, etc. And also as we have dictionaries, we have a lot of objects with name and slug that should be unique also. Some of them should be unique, like port, cabin category, cabin class, cabin type, but some of them, like ship, should be also unique, but not so directly. So the ship should be unique under the specific cruise line. This is why we have this unique together key for the name and for the slug. So at first I will test our dictionary data models, and for this I implemented the special name test case that at first it has a new instance method we can use to create an object for the specific data model, and also I have a setup method that executed before every test from the test case, and then it has two tests. First one is for unique name. So if our name if name of the data model is unique, I test I cannot create the same data model with the same name but different slug. And the second test is for unique slug. So if slug is unique, I test we cannot create the same data model with the same slug but different name. So extending from this name it test case, I let our code to test uniqueness of the dictionaries easy way. So for test cabin, cabin category, cabin class, cabin type, port, and cruise line, all the tests looks the same. So they have a unique name, unique slug, and they not belongs to any parent data model. For the ship, we need to test it a bit different. So when I test the name uniqueness, I check the name and also cruise line. The same for slug. For cruise, I should test a cruise is unique for specific ship, so it's pretty the same. The only things is became more complex is creating the initial data model object, data model instance for testing. But I use some predefined values for this. So if in test I need to just create a cruise, I can just pass an empty parameters to a new instance and get what I need. Okay, so there is nothing difficult here. The same for sail, and I test also uniqueness here. For ship cabin, that's pretty same. The difference is just we need to create a cabin class, cabin type, a cabin category if we want to create the new instance from the scratch. Okay, so this is about testing of the data models from the cruise ship application. So this is just storage, nothing complex. And then let me explain our test for the price changes. Here we have a bit more interesting things. So at first I check the price, and also our price has unique together fields for the sail and cabin. So I have a test non-unique, but I also need to check how the price updates are handled by the system. When we update a price, we should receive a signal from the previous screencast, previous code updates. You can see we have a price exchange signal, Django signal, that is handled by adding new price change row with all the price change data. And I want to check it is happen. So I created one new handler for the signal, the local receiver, just for testing, where I can see, where I can check some parameters of what come from the arguments of this handler when it is called. So I connect it to our signal and I change the price, and I expect all these asserts will pass. And okay, here I check it is impossible to save a price from the sail and ship cabin from these different ships. It is what we have checked under the check price params handler. of the updating of the price. And also interesting thing, under the price change test case, here I check some updates of the price from the price 1 to price 2 to price 3 to price 4, etc. And what I expect should some methods of the price change show to me. I go the same way. So I have a handlers for the post save of the price change, and also handler for the prices changed signals, and I check some equalness of what I get to what I expect to have. So here I predefine some expected values. Then I do update of the prices and check, do we have really have updates of the price and do we really have price change model objects are created. And this is for price changes. And the last part, a bit more complex, is for customers. So let me talk a bit about how we organize test scripts. So Django check the modules with name started from test. This is why the test module is usually has a name tests.p, but for the more heavy applications where we need more unit tests, it's better to create a package tests and add some detalization under this package, the same as I have for our customers application. So there are some easy things like checking how we convert the price into the string. This is what we use in the email notifications. Also some checks for the parsing of the alert types from the database. If we look at the alert signup, you can find we use enum for alert types, and in in the next version of the Django 3.0, the enums will be handled automatically by the Django models. But as soon as the Django 3 version 3 is not released yet, we still need to go old way, just by creating constants and do some overhead on these enumerations. So here I just check that the 0 is parsed to any, 1 is parsed to down, etc. Okay, then I check for I will explain alert signups tests. It's not something difficult, just checked some methods we have under the alert signup, the methods we use in our code. And the most interesting thing is under the price change notifications. Pretty long test case, and I didn't cover all possible test cases here because there are so many combinations of different price change attributes like cruise line, ship, sail, cruise, itinerary, cabin class, cabin type, cabin category, the alert type up, down, unavailable, available, or any, etc. So it's possible to create I think a few hundreds of test cases, but for the moment I added test cases for the most difficult things, I suppose. So it's what I have asked questions in Slack about different conditions of the prices and alert sign up data. So here I check possible cases of the price changes and expected price change notification objects created in the database. I don't check user have an email received because it's more difficult. I will need to implement an own test and email backend for this, and I'm not sure it is required because we have pretty straight model of the generation of emails. Maybe we can add this kind of test in future. So what I do, I created some alert signups, and I have a price, and I check for expected price change notifications. We should get immediately after the new price is created or updated. And I see different combinations of the alert sign up and price values. So here it is. If you have any questions about what I do, etc., please don't hesitate to ask me. And let me show how we run tests. So I created the configuration for executing tests. And I selected Django tests here. Let me show it from scratch. So I click on Django tests, add some name, and for the target, as I want to have all tests run under the project, I just specify nothing. And I also allow parallel run, it's because it's more faster. That's all. I just click on apply, and now I can run tests. So here it is, 33 tests passed in less than a second, and we can check all the tests are passed. Here it is. If some test is not passed, for example, I will update this code to fail the test. Here it is, and Django shows what test is failed. Now I revert, fix the test, and I can run only tests that was failed. It's much faster. And on every running of the tests, by default, Django create the testing database, add the all required data, and remove it after tests are failed or passed. So in short, it is how the unit tests are created in the Django. In Django documentation, official Django documentation, there are a few articles about testing with Django, and testing on Django, and they are pretty nice. So if you want to dive deeper, I recommend to ask me questions or read that articles. One more thing I want to show you how the p-charm check the coverage of unit tests. It's important to know all our important code are covered. So let's check. We have a configuration test, and now we can run it unit test with coverage. Check. Run test with coverage. To make it possible, you should use bundled coverage script under the settings, build, execution and deployment, and coverage. Let's see what will happen. It takes more time. Okay, now we can see the coverage of our code. Let's check. So if we look in general, we covered for 90%, and different applications covered different lengths of code are covered. But if we check, for example, some modules like customers models, we can see only some not important things are not invoked in our unit tests. About this method, it is previous implementation of the notifications. I didn't remove one because we will probably need it later in customer profile or in user interface, so I didn't remove it. But I also didn't create unit tests for this, and I also didn't create unit tests that convert the data models to strings. I see no reason to check this, but all other important and complex things are covered. Here it is. So you can see what is covered and what is not covered. And update unit tests. Okay, so I think this is all about Django unit testing, and introduction is finished. Thank you.